Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about the massive rivalry matchups we have coming on this weekend. USC, Notre Dame, Utah, BYU, going to be really, really fun. Up there in Provo, going to be one of the best atmospheres you see the entirety of the year. I can promise you that. But let's get into some SEC showdowns because we got three ranked matchups in that conference now. Should some of them be as highly ranked as they are? Probably not, but that's something we can get into when I release my top 25 later today. I'm 90% sure. Apologies for the delay there, but it's been really hard to put together this top 25, at least for this week. But Vanderbilt is favored in this football game by 2.5 over LSU at home. As crazy as that sounds, that's the new reality, and it's really not all that crazy. This Vanderbilt team's been playing really, really good football. Number 17 rush offense in the country, number 16 rush defense in the country. Going to be really interesting to see how this one unfolds. Vanderbilt coming off a bye, which is huge for this football team. Very much needed it after a tough performance against Bama. Obviously, weren't quite as far away as maybe that score showed in that game, but made a couple of mistakes that were not like Vanderbilt at all. Will be really interesting to see what happens. LSU just struggled to get that offense really going. Last week, they showed signs of kind of finding their way, but are they going to be able to do it over a couple of weeks, especially against a defense that has played really good football thus far? So both run defenses are really, really good. LSU's pass defense is much better than Vanderbilt's as of right now. LSU's played really, really good football all across that defense. It sounds like Whit Weeks is questionable right now. I think he's going to be able to go. The question is, does he go? How close to 100% he is against a very run-heavy offense and a very linebacker-important offense to defend. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. The Vanderbilt offense has obviously been a little bit more productive than LSU's through a couple of weeks. It'll be really fun to watch this one unfold, and I think Vanderbilt has a chance to, I don't want to say wake people up to what they are, but kind of just remind people who they are and what they're capable of throughout this year. Because they played Alabama, they lose by 16 points. A lot of people kind of just dismiss them over the bye week. LSU obviously has not looked great, has not played great over the last couple of weeks, but absolutely is a team that people still have that hope in, still have that belief in. Vanderbilt can kind of put all that to bed, become that team that beats LSU, probably knocks them out of the CFP race, and then continues on their way where they still get Texas, they still get Tennessee, they still get some big time games where they can knock off one of those top teams and become one of the top teams in the SEC moving forward. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. I think the big thing here is Diego Pavia can't make the mistakes he made against Alabama. That LSU defense will take full advantage of everything that you have. They're going to be swarming and attacking, and you got to make sure you avoid some of those mistakes because guys are going to try to get after you. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to be really interesting to see how LSU kind of handles this offense because it's so good at keeping those attacking defense from attacking. It keeps everyone on their heels, makes everyone look just a little bit longer at the line of scrimmage trying to figure out where the play is going, and then you got to go make a play. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. On the other side of the ball, is Garrett Nussmeier more healthy? It seemed like he was last week. He was throwing balls with more confidence, had more zip on balls that in past had just been kind of ducks the first couple of weeks. He's played really good football at times. He showed that elite football at times. He's also made really bad mistakes, including a terrible one against South Carolina in the red zone. He's got to find a way to avoid that. I think this is a team and I think this is a game that you can win if you avoid mistakes, if you avoid some of those errors, but you've been making them just about every week. So the question is, can you avoid that against this group? Vanderbilt only has 4 INTs on the year, so maybe there's a little bit more opening to take a couple of more risks without the penalty of a turnover, but I think there's an opening here where LSU is going to have to play a little bit better through the air. They're going to have to give their run game a little bit of an opening against a really good run defense in Vanderbilt. I think it's going to be really awesome to watch this game go. I think it's going to be a really, really fun one to watch unfold. I think Vanderbilt's going to be fully ready for this game. I think LSU's ready, and I think they're about to turn a corner. I think there's going to be a moment where a lot of people look at LSU in a couple of weeks and they say, that's just not the same team that was playing the first couple of weeks. I think Garrett Nussmeier is getting more healthy. I think that offensive line is finding a footing. I don't think it's going to be elite, but I think they're finding a footing enough. I don't think they're going to run the ball elite in this game. I don't necessarily think the offense is going to be downright elite in this football game. I think they find a way to get it done. I think Garrett Nussmeier shows the best football that he's played all year. I think LSU wins this one 27-21. I think it's a really, really fun one, but I think LSU finds a way to get one done on the road and continues to keep that CFP hopes alive. Ole Miss on the road at Georgia. Georgia favored by a touchdown and a hook in this game. 7.5, over under at 54.5. This one's really interesting for a number of reasons. Ole Miss coming off just a downright terrible performance against Washington State, walking into Athens for a huge one. Georgia, last time they were in Athens, they lost to Alabama for the first time in 33 games. Go all the way back to 2019 before they lost in Athens to Alabama last week. So got to figure out a couple of things. Georgia were able to get the win against Auburn. It didn't look all that good at times, but in the second half, they were able to kind of control that game, get the big-time win. If Ole Miss loses here, they still got Oklahoma, Florida, and Mississippi State. Now, not the craziest game in the world, and you absolutely can lose it and still make the CFP. I don't think you're going to get the benefit of the doubt that some of these other teams are. So you lose this game, then you lose to Oklahoma, then you're holding on by a thread, and I think another 10-2 team could very well jump over you from another conference or from the SEC moving forward. So that's something to watch for Ole Miss. For UGA, you get a second loss before Texas and Georgia Tech. I think you're in tough shape going forward. So that's something to watch for these two teams. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens, mainly in the first half. I think once we get past about, let's say, 20 minutes of game time, we get the first quarter in a couple of minutes, I think you're going to know what's going to happen in this football game. Not to say no one can come back or no one can flip the script in it, just to say if the Ole Miss offense gets going fast, it's really hard to slow this team down. That's the reality of every Lane Kiffin team, and this one especially with Trinidad Chambliss running the ship. But the Georgia defense, they've been downright terrible in the first half. So can they find a way to get going? I know Kirby Smart's asking for that crowd to help him out a little bit, so obviously would be something that they'd love to see. I think it's one of those things where you have two offenses that I think are capable of putting up 35, 40 points in this game. Which one can put up the points first? Which one can get on the front foot, lean on the other team a little bit earlier? Because I think if Georgia's able to get out to a lead, I don't think Ole Miss has the dudes up front to stop their run consistently. So I think Georgia can lean on the run after they get up if they're able to early. If Ole Miss gets up, I think Georgia can't really play catch up, against this team. I think it's going to be one of those games where once you get about 20, 25 minutes of game time in, you're probably going to know who's going to win this game. The weird thing about these two teams, and the two defenses in particular, they don't cause a lot of chaos, as they have in the past. Only 9 sacks and 3 INTs for Ole Miss, only 8 sacks and 4 INTs for Georgia. So it's not like these defenses are super chaotic. They cause a lot of chaos. They cause a lot of turnovers. They more just kind of grind teams down. They play really, really good on first and second down, force you into tough third downs, and then they get a stop. I think that's the biggest thing here is who can get that 1 fourth down stop inside their own 20, they're inside the goal line ready to go in, and Georgia gets a big time stop like they did against Auburn last week, as controversial as that was. At the end of the day, Georgia's got to find a way to get a couple of those stops. I think Ole Miss is probably going to find a way to get a couple of those stops. Which one of them really can is a big-time question mark for me. The other part of this is Georgia got gashed by Jaxson Arnold's legs early in that game. I think he had 65 rushing yards at halftime before that fumble. You're in a position where Trinidad Chambliss can make you hurt and then some. He can do some really athletic things out on the edge with his legs. He's a lot like maybe a more athletic Haynes King, as crazy as that sounds. He has all the ability in the world, and he's someone that can be really, really tough if you cannot corral him. Guys like Gabe Harris, guys like I think Q Johnson is going to be okay. Guys like Q Johnson, the guys on the edge for Georgia are going to be massive in this game. And then obviously guys like C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, all the elite players on the interior, got to find a way to make a couple of plays in this football game the same way they did a week ago. C.J. Allen was one of the best defensive players in the country a week ago. So going to be really interesting to watch how that unfolds. Speaking of Trinidad Chambliss, this is his first road start. He didn't start in that game in Kentucky. He played a little bit, I believe, in packages, but he did not play most of that game against Kentucky. Can he handle this? This is a very tough environment, and I can almost promise you, when Kirby Smart asks the fans to come out, they're going to come out. They understand that that's part of the business, and I think they're going to be ready to roll in this game. It feels, I don't want to make a sweeping generalization, it does somewhat feel like that Tennessee team coming in when they were ranked number 1 overall. You got a guy that has a little bit of Heisman hype, playing really good football. The offense is really hitting on a lot of cylinders, has looked a little shaky at times, but really confident. A team coming in with a lot of juice. I don't know. I think there's a couple of mistakes here from Trinidad Chambliss. I think there's a couple of moments where the Georgia defense steps up in a way that maybe we haven't seen throughout the season, but I think they're capable of pulling this off. I think Georgia wins this one 31-23. I think Ole Miss kind of battles in the first half, sticks in it. I think Georgia makes enough plays down the stretch. This team has enough ability on defense to make me feel pretty confident in them to be able to get this one done. I think they win this one. I think it looks really, really interesting throughout it, but I think Georgia finds a way again to get a big-time win, and we see what happens the rest of the season with Ole Miss. Still a very manageable schedule, so absolutely has the ability to go on and win out, but at the end of the day, this is a huge one for Lane Kiffin. I think Kirby Smart gets a little bit of revenge. Tennessee on the road at Alabama is the third Saturday in October. This one's special. Bama walks into another top 25, top 20 matchup really in the last couple of weeks. Tennessee coming off a win over Arkansas. Both of them need this win very, very badly. If one of these teams loses, I can pretty confidently say they're not going to be in the CFP, and they're definitely not going to be in the SEC championship moving forward. So this one's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a huge one, especially for a Tennessee team. They still have Oklahoma and Vanderbilt on the road. It is going to be very, very tough to find a way to get another win in those two games. Then you got Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma. Alabama gets LSU and Oklahoma the rest of the way. It is going to be interesting to see what happens with these two teams if they do fall in this spot. The big story about Tennessee is that defense. It hasn't been good this year. It's been downright terrible this year, if I'm being totally honest. It doesn't sound like Jermod McCoy is going to be able to go in this football game. So that's a huge loss. There's no doubt about that. It's a guy that you haven't had all year, so at least you know what that's like. But that's someone you probably needed for this football game. We'll see how that develops, obviously. But at the end of the day, I do think this is a team that I talked about it on Tuesday when we talked. I don't think this is going to be an elite defense. I don't think this is going to be a good defense from Tennessee. I think they have the ability to be opportunistic. I think they have two edge defenders that can be as elite as they come in Tyree West and Joshua Josephs. I think they have enough guys on the back end to make enough plays. Can they do that against this team? I'd be surprised, if I'm being totally honest. Ty Simpson's one of those players where I don't know how you play him. I really don't. Tennessee tends to be a man coverage team. That's the way they played against Georgia. It kind of cooked them. Now, against Arkansas last week, they played a lot of zone, dropped back into coverage, kind of made Taylon Green make plays, and it worked out for him in a lot of different ways. The problem is, I don't know how you defend Ty Simpson. I think if you play zone, I think he's going to tear you apart, if I'm being totally honest. I think if you play man, I think his wide receivers are going to tear you apart. So I don't know. I think Tennessee's got to be able to run the ball in this football game. I think he's got to be able to keep the ball out of Ty Simpson's hands because he's going to make plays in this game. I can absolutely promise you that. He's playing at too high of a level, and Tennessee's playing at too low of a level on the defensive side of the ball to make me feel confident in anything happening but Ty Simpson kind of ripping them apart just a little bit. Now, Bama on the other side, can they run the ball? Because Jamari Miller is questionable for this game. He's a very tough player. That was a very scary hit. So I kind of hope he stays out, if I'm being totally honest, because that scared me just a little bit. But if he is cleared, then he's cleared, and we'll see what happens there. But Daniel Hill, Richard Young, absolutely are going to be bigger pieces in this game. Can Alabama run the ball, take a little bit off Ty Simpson's shoulders? Because as good as I think he is and as good as he has been, he's going to be coming into a very, very intense environment. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this game. Obviously, he's at home, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Tennessee can do. Tim Bates got his hands full. There's no doubt about that. I'll just be totally honest. I'm not picking against Ty Simpson until he gives me a reason to. That kid's playing elite football, and I think Tennessee's defense can try everything they possibly want to. I don't think it's going to work. I think Alabama has all the playmakers in the world. I think if you play man coverage, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton are going to make your life miserable. If you play zone coverage, Ty Simpson's going to make your life miserable. I think Alabama's playing really high-level football right now. It's not the same team we saw in Week 1. I think they win this one 38-27. I think Tennessee is going to be able to put up points against just about everyone in the entire country. I think there's going to be an opening here where the Alabama offense just doesn't really get stopped, especially Ty Simpson in that pass offense the entire day. I think Alabama finds a way to win this one and continues to assert themselves as maybe the best team in the conference. And then finally, just a little one here, Missouri at Auburn. Missouri only favored by 1.5 in this game. Auburn's got to be mad about this, right? They got to come out mad. Now, will they come out focused is another question, which I don't have a lot of confidence in. But at the end of the day, this is a huge one against Missouri, and it's one that could very well decide how quickly this Hugh Freeze thing happens over there at Auburn. But at the end of the day, Missouri wants to run the football. Auburn's been really good at stopping the run. It is going to be really tough for Missouri to play this game on their terms, and they weren't able to do that against Alabama, at least early, and then they kind of abandoned it. And Bo Pribula wasn't able to make enough plays in that game Can they make enough plays in this one? They're going to have to get that run game going one way or the other. I think they have to commit to it. I think they're going to be able to with how good I expect their defense to play in this game. I think the big thing here is I just don't really trust the Auburn offensive line to slow down. These two edge rushers in Zion Young and Damon Wilson. I think Missouri finds a way to win this one. I think Auburn moves forward with a lot of questions about their football team. I think Missouri moves forward to a Vanderbilt game that might just be a must-win right after this one. I think Missouri finds a way to get it done. I don't think it's pretty. I'll take 21-17 here. I think Auburn, again, shows life. I'm not going to trust a Hugh Freeze team to close out games anymore. So at the end of the day, I'll pick Missouri here. I think the Tigers get it done and continue to march on their way to a possible CFP berth with a huge one against Vanderbilt on deck. But a huge weekend in the SEC. A couple other ones we will talk about here in a second because there's a lot of upset alerts in that conference. I have 3 of them on my next list, and I didn't even include one that absolutely could be on there as well. So we'll talk about it all right after this, so stick with us.